Welcome. I'm Neha Dadbhawala. Today I'm going to be in conversation with vivekpaul, partner at Texas Pacific Group. Watch us at TACON Live. Welcome to TACON Live. I'm Neha Dadbhawala. Today I have the pleasure of introducing vivekpaul, a partner with Texas Pacific Group. He's a charming man. I'm very nervous to have to do this interview with him. Welcome.
I'm equally nervous to be on the other side.
I've heard so much about you. You gave a fantastic and phenomenal speech. Something that I want to pick on first is that you were quoting from Arthashastra to George Bernard Shaw. And it's amazing to see a person, having to quote from such things, bringing everything together. Now, is this a passion of yours? Do you read so much, and when do you find the time to read such things?
This is actually the hallmark of somebody who spends many hours on an airplane. So that's what I do. I read and read and read. So I read, and I do have fairly varied interests, but special focus in history and economics, of course.
So any special focus on special history, like Indian history or American history, or?
Actually, primarily Indian history, but even prehistory. So.
And you moved from India in the 1980s. Your first job was at GE. Then Azim Premji called you back at Wipro. You've had an amazing career life. What guided you and what guided your decisions through all of these career moves? Share some.
So I'd say that in some sense, I was a little bit of, I describe myself as a Forrest Gump in the field of business. But having said that, I think that the themes that I've had in my mind is, number one, follow the adventure. So, so people tend to get locked in. I remember, dining at this restaurant, and the waiter said, someday I want to become head waiter. I was thinking, in his world, he's locked himself in, and there's so many things you could do. So I think that the first rule in my mind is, follow the adventure. The second is, the biggest sin of all is inadvertence. In other words, not being aware of what's going on around you. Look around, see what change is happening. And so I try to be aware, and therefore can sort of not only be open to opportunities, but pick and choose kind of what makes the most sense. And I would say the third, and I'll stop at that, is to be very focused on what you do, but not on yourself. In other words, take your job seriously, don't take yourself seriously, and that allows you to not get a mind block that prevents you from evaluating new opportunities.
I had read somewhere, and I quote, don't limit yourself to the past expectations, something that is very profound, and it's something that is a role model for new entrepreneurs, and you said this a long time back. Share a little bit about, what is it that today's entrepreneurs need to look at themselves, look at the industry, their expectations from themselves versus the industry. Share some light on how they can manage both, the inside and the outside.
So when I said that, first of all, what I did mean was don't be foolish, don't be over optimistic about circumstances. But having said that, whatever situation you're in, start beginning to plan for success as much as failure. So many times, so I'll give you an example. When we were growing at Wipro, there was this real thing that why don't we give distribution rights to the Indian outsourcing to these companies, and they can help us grow faster. And my point of view is, wait a minute. If I did that, I'm sacrificing my future full growth.
Right.
And I should not. I should plan for success as much as I plan for failure. And so let's go ahead and do all the things that I know we need to do to be able to create success. Now, maybe I will fail at building a distribution channel. Obviously, we didn't. But maybe I'll fail. That's a price I'm willing to pay. But if I give away my future, I've given away everything.
And you've been going back and forth India, United States. How do you manage to have a family life, and how do you ground yourself? How do you keep yourself aloof for a certain number of time and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to go back to zero. Think about, what I've done. You have a family that is growing up, and you have children that are here in the United States. How do you manage that? The mental stability of an entrepreneur is very important, and a successful man. So how do you manage that?
Well, I think that, first and foremost, I can't say that I'm the role model of that. So, if I ask...
It definitely looks like you are.
Well, so, my wife and kids are not here, so I have no idea what they'd say, but hopefully not too badly. But they would complain for sure that they wish they could see more of me. But I think that ultimately the reality is, whatever role you do, whatever job you do, there's always that overlap, and you have to manage your way through it. And as long as you manage your way through it, with some fairly well-defined goal set that says, this is what I want to do, this is how much I'm going to do it. For example, I used to be able to cover with my wife, how many days a year I'll be away from home. And then, if it was too many, we could decide up front. If I stayed below that mark, we were okay. So, so you do have to make those sacrifices, but you can manage your way around them. But there is no easy answer to this. And the only other thing that I'd say in terms of keeping your mental stability is be a witness to yourself, be the seer rather than the doer of what you do.
Great. As a technologist, what kind of new developments in the industries excite you right now? Talk what?
Well, I think that the whole area of the internet becoming much more personal, I think, is really interesting. I think the whole area of digital goods that can be made in abundance at huge margins, they have a bit of a network effect built in. I think that's really interesting. I think that's good. The third is a lot of productivity-related software and toolkits are actually becoming more. So, for example, if you look at electricity and think about electricity shortages, smart grids, smart metering. So you have a whole range of opportunities that are coming up that are both on the productivity side, where you're trying to manage your way through shortages, and on the abundance side, which is primarily in the digital age.
Great. I've also heard you being so proud about your Indian heritage. You've been brought up in India as well as here. The mixture of the two, it's fascinating. Do you apply some of the upbringing attributes from both ends and apply to your career, and how do you do that?
Well, I think that, first of all, I'm sure I do in a way that I can't even control, because that's just who I am.
Right.
But I think that what I try to do is be steady in terms of whatever culture I work in. And so in the way that I work, I try to be grounded in not being too American or not being too Indian. And, I've had the opportunity to have large workforces in Japan and France. So, I try to be the same Vivek everywhere rather than try and mix myself too much.
So if your kid has to think about you as a superhero, what would he or she, I don't know, do you have boys or do you have girls?
Well, I can tell you something. When your kids become teenagers, they don't think of you as a superhero no matter what you've done.
I can vouch for that. My father might say the same thing.
Exactly.
But in conclusion, I'd like for you to talk about TIE as a platform for entrepreneurs. Social entrepreneurship is big in the industry right now, and TIE is giving them the routing that they require to go out there and to do right. Talk about TIE. What are your ideas about it as a platform? Well,
I think that what TIE does is, in some sense, hard to measure, and yet, infinite in its value. And I think that what you do here is the ability to be able to create connections, the ability to be able to bring human capital in touch with other human capital, with financial capital, be able to see life differently, trigger that initial thought or that extra notion in your mind that can result in a new pathway that you choose. And so it shapes lives. And I think that that is a huge, huge task that TIE does.
Great. Thank you very much, Vivek, for being with us here today. And it was a pleasure talking to you. I hope to see you again sometime soon. This was vivekpaul here at TiECon Live. Do catch us for more episodes on mytiecon.org. Thank you.